Okay, this is the lecture video for MAT1100. We're in lesson 3.1, where we are going to take a look at some graphing concepts, namely the x and y intercepts and the interpretation of those intercepts. We're also going to create a full graph from a table that has x and y values in it. And then these concepts will build the foundation for the next section, where we're going to be looking at slope and how to write the equation of a line. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to give you a visual for what an x as well as a y intercept is. We'll give you the definition and also list those values individually and as points. Okay, so here we go. You can darken these numbers in if they're not dark enough for you. This is just 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on your x-axis. On your y-axis, you also have some positive values. This is 1, 2, 3, and so on. You have some negative values on the x-axis and some negative values on your y-axis. So just to make the conversation a little bit easier, just darkening these in. Okay, so I'm going to point out and then also point out the x-intercept and the y-intercept on this diagram. This point that I am coloring in right now, notice that the line passes right through the y-axis. The line intersects with the y-axis at -4. So that y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. When you go to name those values, I can name it right here in the picture. The x-coordinate is 0 at this point. Any point that's on the y-axis has an x-coordinate of 0. And then that actual y-intercept is -4. Okay, you can also fill that information down here. At the y-intercept, and you can label this. In fact, I would label that. Okay, that number is the actual y-intercept, and its x-partner is 0. For any intercept that you have, something is going to be 0. Okay, so at the y-intercept, the x value is 0, and the actual y-intercept is -4. Okay, again, the point where the line crosses the y-axis, where it intersects with the y-axis. Okay, the other place that this line crosses an axis is at the x-axis. This is called the x-intercept. That x-intercept can be named as 2. You're 2 out on the x-axis in the positive direction, and thus the +2 symbol. And then you're 0 units up on the y-axis, and that is with respect to the origin. This point is 0 units up or down, but it is 2 units out to the right. Okay, this is known as the x-intercept. Okay, so the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. When you list those values individually, the question can be thrown at you like this. The x-intercept, at the x-intercept, the y value is 0, while the actual x-intercept is 2. Okay, so a visual for both x and y intercepts, definition for each one, and how to list them individually. The values, this is the y-intercept, this is its partner. This is the x-intercept, this is the partner. And then how to list them as points, x and y coordinates. In this next graph, we're going to produce an entire graph from this XY table. Always when you are given the table like this first column will represent your x values, and this second column will always represent your y values. Okay, when you are given vertical columns like this. Okay, I've taken the values that represent the number of pizzas, and I came across the x-axis with those values. Going up the y-axis, this will be our y-axis for cost. And along that axis, I have the numbers generated from the table. Notice that I have more values on this y-axis than I do here. So we want to try and recall when you are graphing a line, anytime the points arrange themselves in the formation of a line, they have a line formation, that is because the y values have a constant difference as you jump from one number to the next. And you can find out what that constant difference is, a difference that keeps reoccurring over and over again. Thus, it's going to allow you to fill out the rest of the values in this table. And you can find out that difference by just taking any value and subtracting the one above it. So if you want to do that in your calculator, you can see what that constant difference is going to be. And you can prove to yourself that it's consistent by doing it once again using 1030 and 770. First, I'm going to go 770 minus the value above it. Oops, guess I should turn it on. That might help. So 770 minus $5.10. And you see that the difference between 510 and 770 is that 260 has been added. Let's check that just to confirm that there is consistency in that difference. 1030, take away 770. And you can see that consistency. You've proven that to yourself. Therefore, if this is the pattern that gets you from one number to the next, you can get all the rest of the numbers. This consistent difference is what makes the points line up or have a linear relationship. So adding 260 to go from here to here, that would get you to 1290. Adding 260 once again to get to the next number would get you at 1550. And then adding 260 again would get you to $18.10. And I only went in this graph as high as the number of grid marks would allow me. So I started here, and I'm basically just listing the points that we're going to have to actually graph on this particular line. First thing I listed was my y-intercept. Okay, and you can see from the definitions above that your y-intercept is always going to have an x-partner of 0, just like it says right here. Y-intercept is a point where the line crosses the y-axis, but when you list these values and when you look at them in the graph, a y-intercept will have an x-partner of 0. And then it also says that here. Y-intercept was -4 with an x-partner of 0. That's how you know that this is the y-intercept. So when you go to answer this question, you'll be looking at this point. Okay, that is your y-intercept on this graph. Okay, the line's already been plotted for you. You can see this point right here, 0, 5, 10. You can also see 1, 770. There it is right there, 1, 770. You can also see 2, 1030. So when you go to 2, you're at 1030, just a little bit higher. But, 30 cents is so close that it looks like it's almost right on it. Then the next one is 3, 1290. That would represent this right here. Next one is 4, 1550, and then I didn't have any more grid marks, so I just stopped there. You only need 2 points to actually get the line, but I wanted to plot as many of those as I could. You're also going to be asked questions that concern you interpreting what the values at the y-intercept mean. They're going to ask you to interpret the y-intercept. So the key to that is what I've written right here. To interpret the y-intercept, pay attention to the quantities on each axis. That's how you're going to turn your explanation into word form. Pay attention to the quantities that are on each axis. Okay, so you are interpreting this point, 0, 5, 10. This is your x coordinate, and you want to see how is the x axis, because the x coordinate has to do with the x axis. How is the x axis labeled? The x axis is labeled with this information. Number of pizzas. Okay, I'm not going to write all of it, just the key words there. Number of pizzas purchased. Because this is going to help us. When you interpret, you are expected to write your answer in sentence form. And then this is your y coordinate, and look at the labeling along the y-axis. The y-axis is labeled costs. So when you try and interpret or put in sentence form what this means, you're basically just going to wedge these phrases that were on the x and y axis, this phrase and this phrase, and you're going to mingle them with these numbers. Now, we're not all going to say it exactly the same way, but you should get the same essence of what's being said in the sentence no matter how it is phrased. Try to make, to have good grammar when you're writing your sentence. So you're going to say, when 0 pizzas are purchased. I'm interpreting what these two numbers mean. When 0 pizzas are purchased, the cost, so I'm using these phrases, when 0 pizzas, instead of the symbol number, when 0 pizzas are purchased, that means the cost is $5.10. So now I use the phrase cost. The cost is $5.10. And I explain in word form what 0, 5, 10 means. So that's how you do an interpretation, by dragging the titles that are on the axes and mingling those with the numbers that represent the y-intercept. Okay, so that's a little bit about y-intercept. We will be using these concepts in the next section. That completes the video for section 3.1.